Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Edington. I am Louise Edington, the cyberpunk witch priestess to the stars, and I am here with the week ahead forecast beginning January the 18th through to January the 24th. And as usual, I've pulled some cards, but before I dive in, I'd like you to like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and just any interaction helps these videos get seen more. And I am going to put a link below for my series immersion workshop coming up on March the 7th and 8th. It's a 2-day really deep immersion where each attendee will be sent a copy of their natal chart, whether you have it or not, and also you will get some other materials with it. The recordings will be available afterwards for 60 days, and it's going to go deep. We're going to teach you about Ceres. You're going to engage with Ceres directly, and we're going to look at it in your chart, and we're going to look about how to work with it in your chart. But also, you can take that information and take it out to working with others if you are an astrologer too. So anyway, I'll just put a link below in the description. We're not fully ready to keep sending things out. Oh, the other thing is my new website, louiseedington.com. We are getting ready to, I've moved my email newsletter list to a really good platform. Nothing was working that I did, and as a gift I will, to all people who are on my email list, I am rewriting a short ebook that I wrote a few years ago, and obviously I've grown and developed since then, and everybody on my email list will get that. So the cards, I'm going to show you the cards as usual, and then we'll look at them in detail at the end. Now, all three cards are reversed. Now, I'm tuning into these cards. I use the Red Threads Tarot by Linda Hill in the UK on Etsy. She won't ship to the US right now, by the way, because of the situation here. But she doesn't write the reversed, but I am taking these reversed as, and I'll explain it when we go through the astrology, as emblematic of the fact that we have the main personal planets all under the beams of the sun, and I'll talk to that when we look at the astrology. So we have the Magician. All right, so this is the Magician, upside reversed. Temperance, reversed. Five of Threads, reversed. And this means inner work again. And I really feel that right now. I don't know about you. And I have pulled one card for the end from the Witch Oracle deck, the Empress of Pleasure. And you might go, what on earth? Nothing feels very pleasurable at the moment, but we'll speak to that as well right at the end. So, all right. So I do feel a little bit meh right now. Oh, yes, that's the other thing I wanted to say. I've been coming across some really good articles and things of that give great information, both about what's happening and about ideas for what can be done about it. So I have decided to actually put them all together in a document and linking to all of those. So watch this space for that, and I will add to it over time too. So if anybody wants those articles, I can't keep sharing them everywhere, so I thought, I could put them all in one place and people can click on them and read if they want and if they're interested in them. So there we go. Because, I just want to help people to take a stand and in the way that works for them. Okay, so Astro Gold. And here is my software. Oh, I want to edit the time. and we'll talk as usual on January the 18th, 2026, Sunday, the start of the week. We will notice that this is set for Washington, D.C. as always, so all times are for D.C. You have to adjust if you want the exact times. But I want you to notice that on the 18th, everything is now moving. Apart from Pholus and Juno's a bit slower, everything is now moved to the last 10 degrees, the last decan of Capricorn. And Venus has moved into Aquarius, so the Aquarius energy is growing. And then everything is starting to move towards Pisces. I talked about this a lot. We've got a lot of endings of cycles coming up, an awful lot. And then Chiron and Eris are both now direct, but Eris is still pretty much at her station degree. So she's still in a very potent place. She is kind of the table turner, the angry outsider who stands up for outsiders and says, how can we turn these tables? How can we reveal what the powers that be are doing in a nutshell? I think that's all I want you to tune into right now. Okay. So let's start the week. We start the week with the moon in Capricorn. If you remember, the moon spends about 2 and a bit days in a sign. But I've done a new moon video for the Capricorn new moon. The moon, we start the week with the moon only within 7 degrees of the moon. So we do have the new moon on the 18th. And so if you want full details about the new moon, I have a video on that too. But on the way to the new moon, of course, the moon will square Chiron, square Eris, conjunct Mars. Okay, so, and conjunct Mercury. Have I missed that one? Oh no, then we'll conjunct Mercury, because by the time they are conjunct, Mercury will have just passed Mars. So we'll look at that bigger aspect. But in a nutshell, the moon is going to square Chiron, which is both the wound and the healer. We've talked to that in before, exposing the wound and then saying, let's shine the light on this. How can we be the healers if we choose to? So the wound is really in our faces right now, right? Then the moon will square Eris, which is kind of that table turner, but she is going to conjunct Mars and Mercury. So mind and action, which are going to be combined in a minute, you'll see that. But then the moon will also sextile Saturn. So we are still releasing some self-limiting beliefs, and the clouds are parting about what's actually happening, and we are seeing it so in our face. It's so distressing. And then the moon will trine Uranus. And for the bigger picture, if we've talked about this a lot too, because then the moon will sextile Neptune as well before leaving this sign after the new moon. We've got this building kind of pattern between Pluto, Neptune and Uranus that will really kind of intensify later in the year, and this has never happened before in our history. But then there's other things happening that are part of it. I keep saying this. So this is really kind of hard as an astrologer in many ways, because we can predict, we can look back on history, we can say, well, this happened when this one aspect last happened, but we're having so many big aspects that it's kind of really hard. So, but I still think we're at the endings of a big cycle, okay? And I think, we will be okay. Hope I'm right. So at 2:40 a.m., you can see it now. The moon is just moving forward. Mercury and Mars are conjunct. So that's mind and will and action. But they're so close to the sun. They are under the beams of the sun. That's why this is such an internal journey at the moment. And also I think this is part of why everybody's starting to witness all these things that are happening that have been building for such a long time, okay, but intensifying over the last few years. And so, we need to kind of tune into what we're seeing and what this means for us. This is why I want to create this document with these articles that just give ideas. I can't tell anybody what to do. Somebody asked me, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I can't figure it out for you. I'm giving ideas. I'm posting things all the time. In many ways, I'm kind of taking a bit of a risk here with what's happening out in the world because, I'm not from here. And so, all of this is, anyway, but Mercury, Mars is kind of integrating both the ideas and the action. And here I am saying, as I record this, that I am going to put together a document with articles that give suggestions of actions that can be taken, but also information about how we got here that can help inform those ideas. But anyway, so then, I've looked at the lunar aspects. We have the new moon. Again, I did the aspect for that. I must admit, I'm Miss Pollyanna and optimistic, but what's happening now is probably worse than I thought it ever would be as this collapse. But I think it's going to be short, and it's still horrible. So I'm human like everybody else. So do your self-care. We'll come back to that as well. So then we have the new moon, and that is at 2:52 p.m. If you set it for Washington, D.C., now, which I did, I didn't mention on my overall new moon video because I was not talking about the collective, what's happening. The North Node is right on coming up to the Pisces midheaven. And so this is people realizing that this is all interconnected. Like my liberation is tied up with your liberation, all these kind of things. I do like that the ascendant is at 29 degrees, almost at the very end of Gemini. That means things are going to change in a mutable sign as well. Things are going to change. I'm not going to talk more about that right now. And then at 5:17 p.m., the moon enters Aquarius, but we're still in the no moon phase for quite some time. So, when the moon gets to about 30 degrees, which is a semi-sextile, past the sun, that's when the moon starts to gain light. So we start this week in the very dark moon phase. Things feel quite dark, right? Things are inward. We're planting seeds. Funnily enough, I'm listening to, not reading, Olivia. Mind. This is my ADHD. Audible. Thank you. Where are you? The Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, who was a prophetess who really predicted what's this time and what's happening now. But a lot of activists, including I'll put a link to a book in the document, are getting discussion groups, particularly Black activists, for using her books for strategy. But why did I say that? Because in the books, and she also has another book called Earth Seeds, she talks about Earth Seeds, and here we have seeds, okay, on a Capricorn new moon in an Earth sign. We are planting seeds to create the new world that we want to see. I think at its root, that is the only way through all of this. Not just fighting against all the time, but planting roots of how we can come together underneath all this to create the new. Okay, so after the moon, I'm sorry, I've gone back. Why did I do that? Moon goes into Aquarius at 5:17 p.m. right after the new moon. The moon in Aquarius can help us to see the bigger picture, The moon will meet Venus, so that's our values, our relationships, all while we're in this no moon phase, the seeding phase. Mercury will sextile Saturn. That's seeing more clearly how the old order is breaking down and our old limiting beliefs around all of this society that we've been born into. And again, this is taking a look at how we can let go of some of these things in order to create something different. And then last aspect on the 18th is that the moon will conjunct Pluto. I am going to get that aspect exact. Okay, so this, this everything is intensifying, right? Look at this, right from, the start of the day now. Mercury was, I think, at 22 Capricorn, maybe a little, not quite, but 25. But Mercury's now at 27. Everything's now at the last 5 degrees of the zodiac, not at the last 10 degrees of Capricorn. The moon's now moved into Aquarius. Everything is intensifying at the end of the zodiac as all these cycles end. This is so intense, everybody, and I know you're feeling it. But on the 18th, the last major aspect of the day is the moon conjunct Pluto at 3 degrees, which is a nice number. But I do want you to keep an eye, whether you understand it or not. Okay, this is starting to activate this Pluto-Haumea square. Now, I've mentioned it many times. I wrote an article, which I really need to update, called Aspect of the Decade. Again, time. But I found that there were going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13 exact Pluto-Haumea squares. Now, they began on May the 7th, 2022 in Capricorn and Libra, and they will end on January the 13th, 2028 at 6 Aquarius Scorpio. And 6 Aquarius is the south node for the USA. I'll look at that more later. But one thing that jumped out at me when I looked my article up again, was that the next exact square is on February the 17th at 4 Aquarius Scorpio, which is the day of the 28-degree solar eclipse. So I won't talk about that now, but that is intensifying as well. And so this is sorry, I should have counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th of 13. After that, we have 4 more squares. Okay. September 30th, 2026, February the 1st, 27. September, that one will be at 3, then it'll be 5, then it'll be 4, Aquarius on October 24th, 27th, and then January 13th, 2028 will be 6 Aquarius. I'm actually going to perhaps go ahead and do a separate video looking at all those exact squares, about what else is happening on those days, okay? Because I just think this is important. Haumea is rebirth and regeneration, and similar to the nature of Pluto, which is death and rebirth. And I think this square is part of us birthing this new paradigm. And I'm hoping it's not birthing what we're seeing, trying to grab hold and keep hold of power and greed right now. Okay, fascism, whatever you want to call it. I really hope that we can transform the inside out, but I've been saying for months that we have to be aware of what's happening, and we have to figure out our part in seeding and growing something different. Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of be more, well, whatever. If you like it, you do. If you do not, that's okay. Trine Uranus, Mercury trine Uranus, on to the 19th. The first aspect of the day, we can see this, is, let me clear that drawing. Mercury has got to 27 Capricorn now and will trine Uranus and will sextile Saturn. Well, it did that. Did it do that? Yeah, sextiled Saturn late on the 18th. So really, all of this together, letting go of those limiting beliefs and ideas. We all thought that, our society was kind of set and the world order was set. And now we're seeing it's not. And it's really unsettling. It's really uncomfortable. But we have to adapt and we have to change our perspectives, change our ideas about what can be done. Believe me, we are not going back to normal. Okay, so radical change. Uranus is now at its station direct degree. Uranus will station on, I'm not going to move my chart, I'm just getting a list of them up. So Uranus will station direct on February the 8th, so not far off now as well. So, more change coming, yes, but also more endings of cycles. And this is things falling away, or at least what all this old structures falling away, collapsing, but also our own beliefs and perceptions. Okay. But Mercury, trine Uranus and Saturn is going to say, let go, change, adapt. Mercury's the magician when we go back to those cards. Just saying. Anyway, Mercury, the moon will conjunct Vesta. Also on the 19th, exactly. Vesta is our inner flame. Out there in the world, she is the flame of the state. We have to dive in and see what we want to create from this mess. Okay. Also at 12:55 a.m. Oh, I didn't put her in. Hecate. Oh, that book. Read Nikita Gill Hecate if you have not already. It's amazing. She's quite the activist as well. If you follow her on Threads or Instagram. And Hecate is over here. She meets Pholus. And if you remember, Pholus is the lid comes off. Pholus has been showing us all these kind of sins, if you like, but all of the things we need to see so we can look at it all and go, oh, cat's out the bag, Pandora's box is opened, whatever you want to see. But Hecate comes up, and goddess of the crossroads with the keys to the underworld, she looks back to look forward. Okay, why did I hear that phrase in something I've been reading? Look back, but then to look forward. This is taking in kind of this inventory, historically, personally, all those things, not in a kind of shaming, beating up way, so that we can look forward. This is Hecate saying this is the way forward. A lot of images of Hecate have her one head of Cerberus, the three-headed dog, looking back, and two heads looking forward. That's what we're being asked to do, okay? Then on the 19th, the moon was square Haumea, and that's back to what I was talking about that's coming up just 4 weeks from this. Wow. We're in the eclipse portal now. After this new moon, we're heading towards eclipses. We have the new moon eclipse on February the 17th and then a lunar eclipse. So again, look at that more later. Moon will sextile Ceres. Check my workshop out. But she is again in Eris, showing us about how our needs are not being met, and how we must meet our own needs and then help to meet the needs of others and take a stand for this. Okay, and again, it's a closing cycle. All right. And then on the 19th as well, I'll whiz through some of these. Vesta in a flame will square Haumea. So it's all about birthing and healing from the inside out. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Then the bigger aspects. The sun reaches the last degree of Capricorn. Capricorn season is ending and will sextile Neptune. Endings, collapse, structures of everything. What we thought was true, the actual structures, the rule of law has been poked holes in, and this is not just happening here. Okay, this is happening in a lot of places, and it can be very disorienting. So we'll talk about that at the end, about other things. But then Hecate, my goddess of the crossroads, who I believe should not be left out of a chart now, nor should Ceres. But Hecate squares off to Ceres and says the way forward is healing from the inside out. Hammer that message home. And that applies to you, and it applies to our society, if you like, whatever you want to call it. So then on the 19th, happy birthday to all Aquarians. And so the Aquarius energy intensifies. Mercury is about to leave. Mars is about to leave Capricorn. But the sun enters Aquarius. Aquarius, the sign of humanitarianism, but the people. But also Aquarius has that shadow side, and it's a twin sign. And let me tell you, one way this is being reflected out there in the world is, from my perspective, what I would call bootlickers, is them saying, Fafo, she deserved it, support ICE, all those kind of things, because it has that heavy-handed kind of right is might kind of energy, because its traditional guide is Saturn. But Uranus is its modern sign. So underneath all that, we're getting the rebellion, the changing, the people who say no, the people who say we need radical solutions. Okay. But this is happening within each of us as well, if that makes sense too. And I think it probably does. And so the Venus conjunct Pluto is the first time these two have met since December the 7th, 2024, when they met at 0 Aquarius. And Venus and Pluto really have similarity in energies. In astrology, we often call different octaves. Most people say that Venus and Neptune are of similar octaves, higher in octave, and love, higher octave love, Neptune, and I think that's true. The planets are the music of the stars. However, Venus and Pluto, Venus also has this earthly desires kind of an energy to it, and Pluto really is our root desires or soul desires, or whatever you want to call it. These two coming together again at a lovely degree, 3 degrees. There's a very yin number, I talk about this on the new moon video, is saying, we can create this future, but we have to dig deep and get rid of all our own shadows. But we're also going to see the shadows out there more again. Yes, more. This period is going to be pretty horrible. I'm sorry. I can't sugarcoat things. It's up to you what you do with it, whether you go, I kind of assume a lot of my audience are kind of white women like me, probably a bit older, and we're quite privileged compared to many others, so many others. We have an option here as whether to join, and be the change we want to see. And unfortunately, many will just go and kind of want to preserve what they have. So clearly I'm not that one, but that's the way it is, and we'll see some of that, I think, through here as well, because Venus is also women. So I don't want to join that whole white women are all, yeah, but but yeah, this is going to affect you. You may be down the totem pole, but take Handmaid's Tale as a cautionary tale for that one. So you could take a stand now, or you could wait till later. And on that note of taking a stand, the last aspect on the 19th is that Jupiter retrograde makes a trine to talk to the hand asteroid. Lilith is saying, no, talk to the hand. I will not tolerate this. We have to kind of let go of any resistance to doing something, inner resistance. Okay. And Jupiter's expanding it. But also Jupiter in many ways is kind of the rule of law, the king, and we're seeing the rule of law being just broken. You know, it's almost like it doesn't exist anymore, really. So on to the 20th, Saturn. And I know whoever gives me the thumbs down every video is not going to like that one, because I think they think their law matters more. I actually think I know who it is, by the way, but anyway. So hi. Okay, so Saturn sextile Uranus. Okay. Saturn and Uranus make an exact square. I cannot remember if this is the first or the second. Bear with me. No, we had one on August. And we had one on April the 4th, 2025. And then back then it was 1997 that we had the last one. But this one with Saturn moving faster is a closing cycle of a Saturn-Uranus cycle. I'm not going to go into when that began. I'm going to have to go and read a little bit more of Cosmos and Psyche again about when these cycles began and things, because there's so much happening. But this is the third sextile, an aspect of opportunity. Saturn, the old rules, if you like, or our old limiting beliefs, because Saturn can be very old limiting beliefs. It can be a lot of fear underneath about not being enough as well. And Uranus breaks rules. Okay, so that's all I'll say about that. So, so you can see the rules being broken, but also how are we going to break the rules to do things differently. And at the same time, pretty much Mars action will drive in Saturn's home sign makes a supportive, flowy aspect to Uranus. Now these aspects, sextiles and trines, they're called. I do not believe in good or bad aspects, but I do believe that sextiles and trines do require more conscious choice to activate them. Squares and oppositions really give you a push. You know, you could just ignore sextiles and trines, but will you? I'm not. And then Mars will sextile Saturn, so that's all kind of happening together, the three making this wedge pattern here, incidentally in Earth and water signs. So this is very much about kind of muddy energy, but it can be about sculpting something new as well. Then we've got the moon still in Aquarius, has been a bit quiet until 8:24 a.m. when the moon will join Grace, spin out of Grace Carriclo. And Mercury will then, the mind will get to that last degree, the liminal threshold degree of Capricorn, and move into Aquarius. But before it does, it sextiles Neptune. And again, this is another letting go of old beliefs, old ideas, old perceptions about yourself, about the world, about the old rules. And then Mercury will move into Aquarius as well. So have you noticed? We started the week, Venus had just moved into Aquarius, but now the Sun's moved in, now Mercury's moved in, Mars is on its way. So where we started, now this is all coming to the last two signs of the zodiac, So intense, everybody, so intense. But I like Mercury in Aquarius. Mercury in Aquarius is very much about pulling pieces together, seeing the bigger picture. It's kind of like weaving this new story. It's kind of like, oh, I can pull that piece in, I can pull that piece in, and I can start to see how all this comes together for both us individually and others. But still, you know, everything, Mars, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto, but these are the personal planets, are still under the beams of the sun. And so they are still kind of getting this inner underworld journey, and their energy in some ways is a bit less accessible to us at this point. So we cannot quite, figure it all out. So it's hard, but that doesn't mean sit in the mire and not do a thing, but it might change. This is about adapting as we go, okay? So that's on January the 20th. Mercury moves into Aquarius. Meanwhile, the moon, still in Aquarius, will sextile Chiron and Eris. More seeing what we can do to be a part of the healing. Now Chiron's moving forward. More seeing how we can shape tables or kind of reveal the vanity of the gods or the vanity of the whatever. Bonfires, it was, that's the book. So, and then Venus over here will kind of give us a little bit of a preview of the square to Haumea, but it's kind of all aspecting together. And how funny that as I record this, Pele, because Haumea was actually the mother of Pele, or Kilauea, the volcano is actually erupting, and it's actually erupting for its 40th eruption of this cycle. I've just realized that. And 40 is kind of like a vision quest number. It's kind of like going into the wilderness. Venus is in the wilderness behind the sun. Mercury's in the wilderness behind the sun. Pluto is, but also Mars is. We are kind of in the wilderness right now. We are kind of in a bit on a vision quest that's quite painful to see how we can create a new, collectively. And this is if we are conscious and consciously working with these energies. And so there's the moon still in Aquarius. We'll actually trine Hygeia. Hygeia has gone back into Gemini. She's preventative health. And in air signs with the moon and this, I'm going to say we're going to get more ideas about collective preventative health, personal and out there too. Then on the 20th too, Nessus and Asteroid Lilith talk to the hand, meet together. She's gonna some things are coming out about things that relate to kind of Epstein file kind of stuff and trafficking. One of the documents I will share in that thing I'm making, but it was about an interview with somebody that was sex trafficked and in snuff movies. Okay, it's horrible, but these things are coming out, and a certain person's name was mentioned, I will say. So the moon is square Uranus, 27 degrees, more radical change, radical adaptation, radical thinking. And the last aspect on the 20th is that the moon will meet strategist Pallas Athena at 28 degrees Aquarius, and so almost at the anaretic degree. That's putting it into a plan and a strategy. And then we move on to the 20th. So I'm actually just going to do that by moving the moon into Pisces. The moon has now, nope, not quite yet. So the moon moves into Pisces. The sun is at 1 degree. The moon is going to start gaining light on Wednesday the 21st, 30 degrees apart. You'll see that crescent moon. It's time to start taking some action on what's being seeded, but it's going to be very emotional. It's going to be very like, this must come from love, but it's also, please do your self-care, because it's big. And then the moon will square Sedna, which is spiritual destiny through crisis. I've talked about that many times. But then Venus gets to 4 degrees, has squared Haumea, but meets Vesta, that inner flame. Okay, so go within. We're really, please do not do nothing, but really as this portal, or whatever you want to call it, with everything kind of concentrated and behind the sun and in the last 2 degrees of the zodiac, is about going within and creating your plan and your strategy and let going of the old ideas and things like that. Okay. So Venus will go to your inner flame. So that speaks to meditation for me. Now the moon over here will trine Haumea, regeneration. But then we have the Mercury cazimi. That is really a bright spot. Okay, Mercury conjunct the sun is on the 21st. Yes, here we go. Yeah, on Wednesday. This is the Mercury cazimi. Mercury is moving fast because it's moving behind the sun. But so it's a short cazimi. So for us in the US, this is actually in the daytime for now. So it will start very early in the morning. I'm not going to get exact times. Some people just say when it's at the same degree now. But either way, that can be a real moment of clarity. And it's at 1 degree. So this is like, oh, this is what I could do. And then it goes back in to do the work internally. Oh, my hands raised apparently on my own Zoom call. And then the Pisces moon will trine Juno, who's been very quiet, but that's our sacred contracts with each other. And we are re-examining those. Okay. And how to come into wholeness. Okay, so finishing on the 21st, the moon in Pisces will conjunct the North Node. Let me get that exact, actually. I thought I could do this before I got on a call, and I can't, but it's all right. It's not an important call. It's just something I was going to listen to. But later on the 21st, the moon will conjunct the North Node, and that's at 9 degrees. And the North Node is about to go back to 8 degrees, where it will sit through the eclipses. So this is pushing us towards this Pisces North Node of interconnectedness, realizing clouds parting, seeing that our path forward really is co-creation and more spiritually natured, bringing that part of us into it. And then the moon will sextile Pholus, so more lid off, things like that. Okay, on to the 22nd. I'm just going to move it to the first aspect so we get to that day. The Pisces moon will trine Jupiter. So we've got this big water grand trine. Every time, as things move into Pisces, they're going to do this. And we've had a lot of water. It's not a water grand trine, sorry. This is a trine. We've had a lot of water trines. We had that big water grand trine that lasted. This is eroding. But it's eroding perspectives and what's happening out in the world. Okay. So keep going. Then on the 22nd, Mercury will join Pluto. So we dig deep into the shadows and get rid of it, but also to find our inner gold of strategy and practice and big ideas and what we really want for the future. Okay. That's how to work with them, is to do your inner work first with all of this. Instead of looking out there and going, I can't do anything. We can. We are not powerless. The power is within. And then Mercury conjunct Nessus. Okay, we're probably going to see more revealing of abuses of power in so many ways. Nessus has a slow orb, and it's going to be in Pisces for a while. So we're going to kind of, over time, see and reflect back on more abuses of power, but on more toxins and more toxicity. That doesn't mean the positive change forward cannot start in the meantime, but it's going to be a while still. And the moon conjunct asteroid Lilith is saying, no, we're not doing this. You know, she's the original divine feminine in all its forms. So, and in Pisces, I'm saying it means we have to all work together. You know, I saw a post from somebody the other day saying, and I'm not going to repeat exactly, but there's a phrase that black activists use, saying, white women, you can't use that phrase. It was by a white woman. Well, you know, I think that's kind of up to black people to say it, but also maybe we all just, women particularly, we need to come together with other marginalized people and kind of stop attacking each other. In the activist community, there has been a tendency to attack the low-hanging fruit. Okay, so that's 21st, 22nd. Okay, we're on to the 23rd. I think that's all there is for that day. So we're on to the 23rd. The moon still in Pisces will square Hygeia, but I'm going to get the first bigger aspect. So we're on to Friday. Mercury will square, change that, Louise, Haumea. So we might get more ideas and more news, though, about sexual and power manipulation and dirt and things, as Mercury has now moved into Aquarius. That is an air sign that sees the bigger picture. More may be revealed. Somebody asked me the other day, you know, they were in a nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. And they said, we're never going to get all those documents. And we may not get them from the DOJ, but I don't think all of it's going to go away. I think a lot of it's going to come out through other sources, right? So Mars will then reaches the anaretic degree as well on Friday of Capricorn. Mars is, again, you know, likes being in Capricorn, but Mars is going to move into Aquarius, but before it does, it's going to sextile Neptune. So we may feel a little bit hopeless at those end degrees. The liminal degrees, that's another one where you kind of look back to look forward, okay? Because you're kind of at this threshold between countries, if you like, or different energies. And so you look back, and so there may be a little bit of hopelessness at the end of the week, because that 29th degree is rather intense. So, and Neptune can make us feel fear and hopelessness, and it can be a bit depressing in many ways, especially because Saturn is now coming closer to Pisces. So this Mars, actually, you know, Mars sextile Saturn and Pisces this week, you may have moments of hopelessness. Do your self-care. I'd rather warn you, you know, that you may have them, but please try and sit with them for a bit and then get back into balance and start to figure out how you can be a part of the change rather than just feeling hopeless. Okay. Oh, I feel like I'm nagging all the time, but you know, times are such that, you know, perhaps we have to. Then the moon will sextile Uranus. Think radically, you know, feel that radical change that's needed. And then Mars will move into Aquarius. So, and now we really have like all the main planets, you know, we've got Juno and Pholus and Hecate left in Capricorn, but now we look at this Aquarius energy and this Piscean energy, the last two signs of the zodiac, which is waning cycle in itself, as well as all these planetary cycles ending. So the Mars will move into Aquarius on the 23rd, Friday, which is Venus Day. And then the moon over here will conjunct Saturn and will conjunct Neptune before moving into Eris. But before the moon moves into Aries, the sun comes up and conjuncts Pluto and shines its big old light on the shadow but also on your inner gold. I cannot emphasize enough that these energies have both shine and shadow, right? So please do not take it just one way. But I believe if we work with the energies, that, we can find our strength. We can use the tools of astrology to give us courage and strength and growth. And we can look at our own part and we can heal from the inside out to help the world. So the sun shines its big old light on Pluto. And then, of course, the sun will square Haumea. So death, rebirth, regeneration, all those themes. You can see the moon reaches Neptune, and then the moon moves into Aries. After the moon moves into Aries on the 23rd, it will sextile Sedna, sextile Pluto, right in the middle of them. Spiritual destiny through crisis and that shadow. And I am actually just going to pause the recording because somebody's at the door. Okay, so it was actually a parcel, so I'm glad I paused for a moment. Okay, so the moon, as I was saying, moves into Aries. Let me get that, because sorry, I got a bit distracted. It needed signing for, so I'm really glad I did that. So the moon will move into Aries, okay, and as soon as the moon has moved into Aries on Friday, the 23rd, it will, as I was mentioning, sextile, Mars actually first, sextile Mars, sextile Pluto, but it's base, and then will also kind of aspect all of these things over here. So it will the moon will sextile Mars. Oh, and then sextile Sedna. That was where I was. So Sedna and anything at the beginning of Aquarius are really in a trine flow aspect, new ideas, new perspectives, adaptation. Gemini is adaptation as well. But here's the moon in Aries, kind of activating both of those as well. So that's bringing action, Mars, will and drive in Mars sign. Okay, and emotions about it into this big adaptation that is being needed. We have to adapt to the new reality. Believe me, we are not going back. But the moon will then sextile Pluto and then will sextile the sun. And so, is really kind of gaining light towards the end of the week. And will sextile Vesta, of course, the inner flame. And then will sextile Venus, because Venus is trotting along here as well. So that we finished that on Friday with the moon sextile Venus, aspects of opportunities in fire and air, new ideas, but also the moon is waxing, so we're getting a bit more energy and a bit more enthusiasm. We're moving a little bit out, thankfully, where we were towards that more kind of hopelessness, feeling like down in the dumps, more to saying I can't do this, from saying I can't do this to going I must do this, if you like. Okay, so on to the 24th. The moon will start the day So I am going to get the first aspect. Will aspect Juno, which is our sacred contracts with each other. So this is the last day of the week. The moon over here in Aries will square Juno, but then the sun over here will actually square that Haumea. So Pluto-Haumea aspect is being aspected over and over again. And honestly, my eyes popped out of my head when I re-looked at my article about that and realised the next exact square, the 9th, 9 is endings, is on that eclipse. So I think that eclipse is going to be huge. Okay, February the 17th, by the way. Mars over here, exactly trine Sedna. I just talked about all of that. But the moon in Aries over here. But remember, it's waxing, taking action now. Squares off to Pholus. So what has been revealed and seen, and that look back to look forward kind of energy, it's time to start really buckling up and taking action. But the moon takes conjunct Ceres, and that's saying make sure you take care of your own needs first before you figure out how you can help take care of others' needs as well. Okay. Then the moon will square Hecate, and that is at 13 degrees still. And incidentally, this is at the degree where the sun was on the Capricorn full moon when Venezuela invasion happened. Something might come back about that, but also to go back to the full moon degree. This is the goddess number 13, the witch. Women have to rise up, or the witch, or the divine feminine, or whatever you want to call it. And then Mercury will conjunct Vesta, so go look at your inner flame. That's actually at 6 degrees Aquarius on that south node of the USA. So we are having a good hard look at the inner flame of this country, but it's also affecting you too. Then the Aries moon will square off to Jupiter, so it's time to start taking big action. Okay. But then Pallas Athena moves into Pisces. So I am going to get that so you can just see how intense these planets are just getting. Pallas Athena in Pisces is going to be more about not pulling the pieces from out there together. Now it's about taking them within and strategizing and bringing wise justice from within. Okay. So Pallas Athena moves into Pisces late in the evening on the last day of the week we're looking at, making this Pisces energy even stronger. But just look at this now in the last 2 signs of the zodiac. We really are reaching the end times in some way or another. I don't think it's the big end times, but maybe that's what they were talking about. By the way, revelation is kind of end times, but revelation actually means kind of knowledge coming to light. So, all right, let me stop the share and let me look at the cards and get my book. And then I will go and do something else before I interview Rosie Finn, who wrote Persephone's Revolution, Pluto's Path to the End of Empire, which is really what we're seeing, the end of empire, I think. So watch that interview too. Okay, so we've got the Magician. Okay, this is the Mercury card, and we have the Mercury Cazimi this week. But remember, I said that Mercury is on the other side of the sun. And so the Cazimi is, in a way, the sun beaming Mercury's message down from out there. I always kind of feel like. So let me get to the Magician. By the way, this is the 1 card. And Mercury Cazimi is at 1 degree too. So let me show you this. But this is I Am Manifestation. This is Daedalus, who was an inventor, right? So let me read this quote for you, which is by Philip Pullman. The intentions are a tool are what it does. A hammer intends to strike, a vice intends to hold fast, a lever intends to lift. They are what it is made for, but sometimes a tool may have other uses that you don't know. Sometimes in doing what you intend, you also do what the knife intends without knowing. But this is saying you honor the divine tools that lie within yourself. Okay. You are above and below. But Daedalus was an alchemist, a builder, a trickster, a powerful magician, and a wonderful lover, apparently. So, I'm not going to go into all of that more. Honor the divine tools that lie within yourself. You are above and below. You are the universe and the soul. You are without and within. Okay? Whew. Temperance is the number is the 14. We've had this before, but I always try and read them in the context of what's happening in the planets too. So this is the dissolving. We've talked about that a lot. We are dissolving, the structures, our limiting beliefs, all of those things. And this is I am unity, though. And let me again read the quote. This is once by Jung. If a union is to take place between opposites like spirit and matter, conscious and unconscious, bright and dark, and so on, it will happen in a third thing, which represents not a compromise, but something new. That third thing is you, for the purposes of this video. So if Jung said, if we hold the tension between two opposing forces for long enough, there would always emerge a third way, which could unite and transcend the two. So that could apply to out there as well. But I still think it's going to come from within first. Incidentally, though, I've noticed that a friend who we kind of parted ways because he kind of went to the dark side, I'm going to say. Apparently, he's maybe turned around. So there you go. I have to look into that. So this is the red thread of anger. This is I am conflict. And this is upset. Okay, so I'm going to read the quote again by C. Joy Bell C. Choose your battles wisely. After all, life isn't measured by how many times you stood up to fight. It's not winning battles that makes you happy, but it's how many times you turned away and chose to look into a better direction. Life is too short to spend it on warring. Fight only the most important ones and let the rest go. Pick your battles, in other words, but also this is an inner one as well. Pick your internal battles. Okay. And last card, from the Witch Oracle deck is the Empress of Pleasure. Well, immediately that speaks to me of do your self-care first. Do things that make you joy. To quote my friend, operate from joy. Okay, so Nora Herald, she channels the Pleiades, but her phrase is operate from joy. We really kind of have no choice but to find our joy and to operate from joy, to adapt from these times. Okay. So, but let's read what the book says. Pleasure is your birthright. It's not something you have to earn or deserve. And it is your greatest compass. Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss as a means of directing you toward your soul's calling. When you experience pleasure, the kind that opens you up to radiance, you are moving towards your highest self. Whether it's making art, relaxing in nature, picking out a new pair of shoes, eating a cookie, or treating yourself to an orgasm, pleasure expands your well-being, health, and mental clarity. We've spent much of our lives learning from pain. What if pleasure became our next teacher? What if we put pleasure on the priority calendar and devoted a portion of our weekday week to it in order to see what it can teach us of ourselves? A witch understands that when she is drenched in pleasure, she has more resources to share with others in her life. So schedule that spa day, treat yourself to the meditation retreat, paint that wall purple, not because anyone else will understand or agree with your choice, but because the colour brings you pleasure, and that is enough of a reason. Don't wait on someone to share the pleasure with or any outside source to agree with you. This is your gift to give to yourself. Now is the time to pay special attention to whatever brings you joy and do more of that. So I end with that. So please, doing those actions that bring you joy can actually also help you process all of this stuff that's happening, and those feelings of despair. Sometimes they can lift you out of the despair and spur you on to ideas about what you can do. So please do your self-care, do things that bring you pleasure, do things that bring you joy, do them guiltlessly, because then your cup gets filled and you are more able to do things. Till next time.